Morning. How's everyone today? Good, good. So this presentation is called Becoming Your Number One Media Outlet, or as the Trump campaign might call it, Becoming Your Number One Totally Rigged Outlet. I feel the need to kind of reclaim that word today. My name is Greg Hughes. I'm the social media manager of the Kennedy Center. Are there any other social media managers in the house? Great, awesome. So I used to think that was like the most obnoxiously millennial title you could think of, but my 22-year-old intern informs me that there are now content curators, engagement specialists, so suddenly I feel like the guy who remembers when new media was part of our job titles. But I also consider myself to be part of the team. So I manage all of the social media properties, not only for the Kennedy Center, but for a couple of organizations under our umbrella. And that includes the Washington National Opera as well as the National Symphony Orchestra. So the Kennedy Center is a living memorial. So we're DC's physical monument to President Kennedy, but performances sort of breathe life into our building. We have over 2,000 performances every year spanning all the genres you see here across 10 different venues. Mashups of those genres and even more. So there's quite a bit going on. So President Kennedy said some pretty remarkable things about the intersection of art and public life. This is one of my favorites. I'm certain that after the dust of centuries has passed over our cities, we too will be remembered not for our victories or defeats in battle or politics, but for our contribution to the human spirit. It's really beautiful, right? And it's very hard to imagine that being uttered during our current political season. So President Kennedy was a uniquely fierce arts advocate. But he also said, change is the law of life, and those who only look to the past or present are certain to miss the future. So in that sense, President Kennedy was also one of our first digital marketers. As a side note, I'm entirely confident that the Kennedy campaign would have had a kick-ass social media program. So I realized I included a kind of polarizing word in the title of this presentation, so I want to unpack its real meaning. I want to take a step back and understand the different elements of media and how they inform our overall goals of selling tickets, engaging with audiences, and perhaps most importantly, tell our stories. And I want to demonstrate not just the value of prioritizing social media as an engagement platform, but also why it's increasingly critical. So media, the main means of mass communication, especially television, radio, newspapers, and the internet, regarded collectively. And I really want to emphasize that, regarded collectively, because I think the notion of collectively can help us combat certain organizational silos and help us work collaboratively towards a shared common goal. And that means sometimes considering the elements of media that are beyond our immediate focus. So as a social media manager, items beyond my focus, things that public relations are initiating, marketing, et cetera. But the reality is, media has become increasingly synonymous with digital. And for us as marketers, that means an increased emphasis on video, of course, and a really resounding call to change the way that we interact with audiences, right? How do we know that to be true? Well, you've been hearing it every year for the past several years, including right here at boot camp. You've probably heard these words before. Your organization needs to become its own media company. And the first time you heard that, you probably thought, and then you thought a little bit more practically. But for some reason, the vision you have in your head is that your marketing department suddenly needs to become like the film crew on a Quentin Tarantino film. And then you suddenly felt a little bit less practical again. So the good news is you really don't need to do that. So you can grow your media company by simply prioritizing your channels. And that can take on a lot of different creative forms. So video is certainly one of them. But I'm going to make the case that you don't need someone on staff with an Academy Award in cinematography to do exactly that. So last night, I took a 4:48 a.m. train to be here this morning because last night was one of our two biggest special events at the Kennedy Center. It was the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. Yes, Bill Murray did show up with the Cubs in the playoffs. There was a bit of concern if it went to a Game 7, then we might have to pry him from Wrigley Field. But last night we honored Bill Murray with the Mark Twain Prize, which is sort of a lifetime achievement award for comedy. So it airs nationally on PBS this Friday. So it was a pretty late night. I want to thank whoever scheduled me in the Monday morning slot. But for special events like the Mark Twain Prize, which I would liken to a gala or some other high-profile event at your organizations every year, it's really easy to lose social media in the crowd, right? So you have your red carpets, you have press at the forefront, you have all these balls in the air, and it's really easy to have it be an afterthought. Now, Ryan talked a little bit about the increasing importance of Facebook Live, and I want to talk a little bit about why it's such a transformative technology and how it's radically evolving our ability to communicate with our audiences in a really direct, authentic way, and how we leveraged it most importantly for Twain last night. So there's no middleman, right? So there's no pitching your story to an outlet, hoping they get it right. So last night, we prioritized social on the red carpet at the Mark Twain Prize, whereas Jane Curtin said, Facebook Live, at least it's not Facebook dead. So in concert with our presenting sponsor, Capital One, we engaged a host, Mario Armstrong, who contributes regularly to the Today Show, to narrate the evening. And so he interviewed people like Jane Curtin, Emma Stone, Jimmy Kimmel, Bill Hader, and we brought that experience directly to our users on Facebook. So we didn't wait to share the coverage that surfaced the day after. We took the excitement and shared it in real time. And as a result, more than 17,000 people experienced that feed last night. So of course, we prioritized it. We gave new access to our online audience. So this is a very exclusive engagement that not many people get to see live in real time. But maybe most importantly is we brought all these different stakeholders to the table, right? So it's not just public relations and helping us carve out the spot on the red carpet, but we're also including our partners in development. So we had an institutional sponsor engaged, as well as marketing. So it was a really great synchronicity between those departments. And this is happening everywhere, right? So the Hillary Clinton campaign brought the Democratic National Convention directly on Facebook. So you could watch the coverage sans pundits in a really highly controlled way. But what sets Facebook apart is the immediacy, right? So Facebook has 50 minutes of your time every day. So the average user spends 50 minutes on Facebook. So your eyes are already there, and that's part of its power. But not only that, but in a sense, Facebook is also increasing our attention span. So users spend an average 3 times longer watching video on Facebook, that's video that's live compared to video which is no longer live. And we're leveraging it in a variety of different ways to give our digital audience new access. So we have a series at the Kennedy Center called Theater Look-ins, which is typically open to some select schools in DC public schools. But now we can bring that experience directly to users online. Live music workshops. So over the summer, we had Chris Thiele at the Kennedy Center for an American Acoustic Festival. And he did a few workshops nightly that we were able to bring to people, and in concert with him, share those in real time. They're among our most viewed videos. And free nightly performances. So we have a series at the Kennedy Center called Millennium Stage, which is a free performance every day at 6 p.m., spanning any genre you can think of, comedy, classical music, opera, you name it. And in a sense, by broadcasting that every day, we've almost created a 11th performance space, so a digital stage in a sense. It doesn't require that you live in or visit Washington, D.C. to experience our programming. So it's changing the definition of how we share art. Glimpses inside the studio. Did anyone watch World Ballet Day a couple of weeks ago? It's awesome, right? So organizations are already leveraging this idea and really employing it in a lot of really powerful ways. World Ballet Day was such a great example of that. So this year, more than 3 million people will experience Millennium Stage online, which is not a figure that we could really compare to just by streaming on our website or YouTube or any other platform. The physical confines of the center, in a sense, are ever expanding. And it's this interesting dichotomy where more people are now experiencing Millennium Stage online than they are in person. And what is also expanding, or what is being broken down, are the space between some of our organizational silos. So it's been really exciting. But the best news, thank you, Bill, your multimedia team can be one device, right? So Ryan talked a bit about the difference between mobile and a professional capture. And the reality is you don't necessarily need a large multimedia team to leverage and to create compelling content on Facebook Live, right? So this is just a feed from our annual National Dance Day. And I took a sort of first-person perspective, immersed myself in the crowd as people were learning it at the Kennedy Center. And you can take your cues from some of the largest media outlets. So the New York Times regularly features mobile content, whether it's the feed of an embedded journalist overseas or behind the scenes at the Times itself. And they balance this approach with professional capture as well of more formal events like we did with Mark Twain last night. Because there's really no data that suggests any difference between the two. And in fact, you can make the argument that mobile content is more engaging than that professional feed. So whether it's a cell phone rig or an external microphone, there are so many affordable tools on the market that can help you turn your cell phone into a really, really dynamic device. So take what happens at your organization every day and share it with the world. So whether that's conversations with artists, curators, archivists, programmers, there are so many conversation topics to cover, and you now have the perfect tool to initiate those conversations with the world. So now you're becoming one of your most receptive media outlets, right? So we've talked a bit about the value of prioritizing social media as a media outlet, but I want to dive in how that can also work in sync with other earned media goals. So I'm definitely not suggesting that you abandon all other PR efforts. I'm a big believer that there can be a powerful overlap between those things, between all those goals. And Kendrick Lamar is going to be my spokesperson for this portion of the session. So I started at the Kennedy Center almost exactly a year ago this week. And one of my first duties was to create a social media strategy for a really special performance, which was a one night only of Kendrick Lamar performing with the National Symphony Orchestra at the Kennedy Center. So it was like day 2 of my job, getting lots of sleep lately. So it was one night only. One of the most popular hip hop artists in the world, an extremely rare performance experience, incredibly high demand for tickets, and only 2,500 seats in the physical house. So the question becomes, how do we invite a broader audience into the experience, right? So how do we make digital an extension of the experience? I love Venn diagrams. This is the collaboration I began to describe. So if we look at the function of PR and social media kind of holistically, we can start to see where they intersect and how one supports the other. And what we try to do is to gain control by submitting a little bit of control. And what I mean by that? So on the night of Kendrick Lamar, we knew there would be lots of, shall we say, unauthorized content. So we knew crowdsourced videos would line the pages of YouTube. But we were able to occupy that really coveted #1 slot by submitting a little bit of control. And it had to do with the collaboration between our PR team and social media.
She just wanna go outside with you, 1, 2. It's true, it's true, it's true. Homegirl right here. Shout out to the birthday girl. Say hey. Say hey. Everyone deserves a night to play. And she played. Only when you. These walls can talk, they tell me to swim good. No boat, I float better than he would. No life jacket, I'm not the wall of Nazareth. But your flood can be misunderstood. Wall telling me they full of pain, resentment. Need someone to live in, I'm just to relieve tension. Me, I'm just a tenant. Landlord said these walls vacant more than a minute. These walls are vulnerable. Exclamation, interior.
So these walls are vulnerable, exclamation. I'm going to let Mr. Lamar provide the metaphor for this section because it's really the breaking down of those prevalent walls sometimes between PR and marketing that can help us regard social media in this new way. So since I came on board at the Kennedy Center, I've had a weekly meeting with our Vice President of Public Relations. I also attend their weekly press huddle, which is all of the press reps from the Kennedy Center for different genres getting together, talking about pitches, broader themes that they want to communicate to the public. So I'm in the loop on all of those. And the idea is that we don't create walls within our strategy, and we try to forget that they're even there, that there's not a social media, PR, marketing, that is all working in sync. And by prioritizing our channels, we're actually creating some overlap with other forms of media. I'm going to show how that played out with Kendrick Lamar. So at 10:48, before the Kendrick Lamar concert even let out, we decided to quickly cut together a video and deploy it from the concert before people were even on their way home. So we had approval to do one full-length song and distribute it across the web. So we segmented the longer file. We optimized different clips at different lengths for social media, and everything pointed in one direction, which was to a YouTube video. And by doing that, we were able to not only be nimble and post something that was incredibly timely, but we were also able to assert a certain prioritization of that video on Google.
She just wanna go outside.
And what do I mean by that? Well, sites like Pitchfork, Rolling Stone, GQ, et cetera, who would normally crowdsource video content to include in their articles, picked up ours instead. And it surfaced in nearly every article that came out the following day. And suddenly, a piece of content that was created for social media was front and center in nearly all of the earned media coverage that surfaced the following day. So it was a great moment for us. It had a ton of views, but the important number I think to consider and to look at, which often goes overlooked, are those referral sources. So the fact that 38% of those views came from the work that public relations is also doing to get that earned media coverage and the power of that. So last year was a year of firsts for me. So I also received my first Kennedy Center honor. I was extremely humbled. I attended my first Kennedy Center honor, and that proved to present its own challenges and opportunities. So Kennedy Center Honors is broadcasted nationally every year on CBS, and we honor several artists with a Lifetime Achievement Award for their contributions to American culture. I just want to inject some good vibes into this place for a few minutes.
There is only one Aretha Franklin.
Looking out on the morning rain,
So I wasn't planning on playing that whole clip, and I was like, you like really can't turn it off, so it's incredible. But of course, because Honors is broadcast nationally every year, the important thing is the second screen experience, right? So how many of you follow along, events like the Tony Awards, on your phone, you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, you're looking for that supplementary material. So even though we're trying to capitalize on a live audience here, and we're not exactly tweeting in real time during most of our performances, I still think there's a lot to glean from this notion of really immersing yourself in a conversation, right? Whoops. I accidentally went back to it because I wanted to see it again so badly. And to cover your events in a sense like a reporter would. So those second screen experiences are among the most fun to work on because we see the performance and we have a few weeks to kind of plan it, and we know what those moments might be. So that moment tweet with Aretha, we knew that was going to be incredibly special. But we can think about that with our other programming too. And so I'd really urge you to sit in the theater and to watch the performance and to consider what moments really resonate with you, what lingers in your memory. And how can you translate that to the material that you're putting out on social media? And so for Kennedy Center Honors, we craft that experience to enhance the broadcast. So start to think about coverage you're giving these events as opposed to just echoing themes that surface in the days that follow. So even if your performance is not being live streamed, you can give it that same kind of real-time immediacy and inspire the excited feedback your patrons are really looking for. And similar to the Kendrick Lamar case study, which wasn't a second screen experience, if you post content in a really engaged and timely manner, we can really delight our audiences and give them something super, super exciting to share. So Honors was a great moment for us. I didn't realize that Nielsen had social ratings either. I thought it was kind of a TV exclusive thing. But the most important thing to me wasn't necessarily those reach numbers, but how we stood out in the conversation. So how KenCen and our handles was perceived and shared. And not only did we help support and drive the conversation, but our voice was among the most heard. And I think as we think about prioritizing ourselves and media in general and how social can inform it, it's really that element of voice that is the most important. So some takeaways. So of course, I'm advocating for prioritizing social as a main distribution channel. So try not to relegate your social people to the back of the crowd, right? So for all these special events, think about how you can put them at the forefront, how you can grant them new access to be really nimble and great content creators. Pitch yourself and your team those incredible coverage ideas. So, by sitting into those press huddles, I'm in a sense hearing the pitches that those associates are making to other media outlets, and I'm almost thinking as a media outlet myself. So how can we translate that into great content for our channels? So consider the benefits of growing those versus feeding them to other media outlets, right? So really, with all the information that we can glean from digital in terms of, impressions, reach, think about how you're reaching people and how those numbers stack up against other outlets that you might be prioritizing instead. Don't erect unnecessary walls between you and your audience or within your organization, right? So, don't think that there is no conversation to be had between you and development or you and another area of the organization that seemingly there isn't that immediate connection. The benefit of being first isn't just for bragging rights, as we experienced with Kendrick Lamar. It can inform other areas of coverage. So don't wait to see how others are leveraging new tools. Always ask, what is the, insert your organization name here, version of this, right? So if you see something great that the New York Times is doing, that another media company is doing, what is the Kennedy Center version of that? How can we really optimize that to make something great? Immerse yourself in that conversation. And of course, the media landscape is always changing, right? So when I devised this presentation, Facebook Live, wasn't even on my mind. It was just kind of a kernel of a thing. But now it's a really integral part of our strategy. And so with that said, this presentation will probably be completely irrelevant in like 12 days. So you can disregard everything I said. And maybe if I'm slightly cooler next year, I'll be the Kennedy Center's virtual reality manager, and we'll have an entire new conversation topic. Thanks, guys.